Chapter 9 of A Narrative of a 9 Months' Residence in New Zealand in 1827 by Augustus Earle. This is recorded to celebrate the 9th anniversary of LibriVox. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 9 The Missionary Settlement at Kerikeri. We had travelled all day through a country in which every object we saw was of a character that reminded us forcibly of the savage community we were with. Occasionally we met groups of naked men, trotting along under immense loads, and screaming their barbarous songs of recognition. Sometimes we beheld an uncouthly carved figure, daubed over with red ochre and fixed in the ground, to give notice that one side of the road was tabooed. An extraordinary contrast was now presented to our view, for we came suddenly in front of a complete little English village. Wreaths of white smoke were rising from the chimneys of neat weather-boarded houses. The glazed windows reflected the brilliant glow from the rays of the setting sun, while herds of fat cattle were winding down the hills, lowing as they leisurely bent their steps toward the farmyard. It is impossible for me to describe what I felt on contemplating a scene so similar to those I had left behind me. According to the custom of this country, we fired our muskets to warn the inhabitants of the settlement of our approach. We arranged our dresses in the best order we could, and proceeded towards the village. As the report of our guns had been heard, groups of nondescripts came running out to meet us. I could scarcely tell to what order of beings they belonged, but on their near approach I found them to be the New Zealand youths who were settled with the missionaries. They were habited in the most uncouth dresses imaginable. These pious men certainly have no taste for the picturesque. They had obscured the finest human forms under a seaman's huge clothing. Boys not more than 15 wore jackets reaching to their knees and buttoned up to the throat with great black horn buttons, a coarse checked shirt, the collar of which spread halfway over their face. Their luxuriant, beautiful hair was cut close off, and each head was crammed into a close Scotch bonnet. These half-converted, or rather half-covered youths, after rubbing noses and chattering with our guides, conducted us to the dwellings of their masters. As I had a letter of introduction from one of their own body, I felt not the slightest doubt of a kind reception, so we proceeded with confidence. We were ushered into a house, all cleanliness and comfort, all order, silence, and unsociability. After presenting my letter to a grave-looking personage, it had to undergo a private inspection in an adjoining room, and the result was an invitation to stay and take a cup of tea. All that an abundant farm and excellent grocer in England could supply were soon before us. Each person of the mission, as he appeared during our repast, was called aside, and I could hear my own letter read and discussed by them. I could not help thinking, within myself, whether this was a way to receive a countryman at the antipodes. No smile beamed upon their countenance. There were no inquiries after news. In short, there was no touch of human sympathy, such as we of the world feel at receiving an Englishman under our roof in such a savage country as this. The chubby children who peeped at us from all corners, and the very hearty appearance of their parents, plainly evidenced that theirs was an excellent and thriving trade. We had a cold invitation to stay all night, but this the number of our party entirely precluded, so they lent us their boat to convey us to the Bay of Islands, a distance of about 25 miles. As the night proved dark and stormy, and as our boat was crowded with natives, our passage down the Kerikeri River became both disagreeable and dangerous, the river being filled with rocks, some under, and others just above the water. we were obliged to keep a good lookout. After experiencing many alarms, we arrived safely at Kororareka beach about midnight, where an Englishman of the name of John Stone gave us a shelter in his hut. End of chapter 9 of A Narrative of a 9 Months Residence in New Zealand in 1827. Read by Anusha Iyer, Mumbai.